Good morning, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Patrick Brown. I've been with the Army, it'll be 6 years, January, and been up at Tustin Ranch for about 2.5, facilities manager. 2.5 over at AES as operations manager. So I have familiar with a couple of facilities, and as facility manager, I get around to all the properties, so I have good awareness of all the different programs that we have here. So thank you for joining us. Again, Morgan, thank you for making them happy before I talk to you today, because who knows how I will do, but the food is good, so thank you very much. I have no qualifications for presenting to you today. I just Praise volunteered me. I don't know why, but you could ask her. It could be because maybe I'm a difficult person. I know I am difficult for some people, though. I really do know that, because one of my qualities, I'm a very direct person. And that works sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't work too well, and I know that. All of our strengths are going to turn into weaknesses at some time. Today you will learn that I'm a difficult person. All of you are difficult persons at times to different people, right? So that's what we're really going to learn about that today. But Oliver did clue me in yesterday. He goes, "How are you going to do this? You don't work with any difficult people at Salvation Army. What are you talking about?" Oh, I said, "You're right. I forgot, Oliver. So we'll just talk about my past experiences." All right. First thing, who is a difficult person? I already sort of led into that and said I think we all are. So was Jesus a difficult person? The Pharisees didn't like him very much. A lot of people didn't like him very much. So he was pretty difficult too. So it really depends on the situation, the environment. You know, are you a supervisor to someone? So that determines that. It's all about the relationships, right? Is it a colleague? Is it a friend? Is it a partner? Is it a client? So all of those, navigating those differently, your partner versus a client is very different, right? Because you get to leave that client, you don't live with them. So it's a whole different world. And so how you navigate difficulty is a different thing. So understanding that, being aware of the different circumstances is important. The other thing is that sometimes our difficult people, sometimes like they're a one-off type thing. It's not a relationship thing. It's somebody you meet at the grocery store, or it's a one-time client, and you don't have an ongoing relationship with that client. So there's different ways that, again, versus an ongoing relationship where there's difficulty versus a one-off thing that we'll look at a little bit as well. Praise recently gave us a training, and she said that it is someone who is unaccountable for their actions, unresponsive to feedback, resistance to change, poor performer, uncooperative, and can be almost anyone. I added this because all of us annoy us at some time, right? That's all of us. We're all difficult people. Yes, Allison, shake your head. Yes, true, all of us. None of us get away from it. None of us. Important for us to know. All right, so let's start just real quick with the one-off, the angry, the mean person, the de-escalation that's involved in that. So those of you, it's primarily in the client world, but it can happen in other situations as well, where you may have someone who is angry, mean. You have to deal with it on a one-time, de-escalation practice. So the anger that the person is expressing may be a sign that the person is in distress, fear, frustrated, whatever. Something going on typically, right? It could be legitimate. A lot of times it's the expressed fear or hurt is not the real hurt or concern, often, Whenever you have someone that's really angry, it's really never able to reason with them. So those of you that are in partner relationships and you try to reason when they're angry, are you ever going to be successful with that? No. How many times have you tried? Way too many times. Why did we do this? Who knows? It's interesting. We'll talk about this. Why do we keep banging our head against the wall? All right. So it takes effective communication. And I just want to give you a quick handout right now. There's this guy I love who I subscribe to his email blasts. He works in homeless services, worked in Chicago about 20 years at a homeless, and then he does training now. And I think we are getting his training. I don't know where we're at. But here's just do a quick read here of what he talks about de-escalation, and this will sort of set the table for this whole day because we already just found out how difficult it is to deal with people who are difficult. Oh, sorry, back table. Sorry, you were part of this as well. Hi, camera. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Sorry, Saul, I'm making it difficult for you. So good analogy, anytime you're learning something new, it's never easy, right? We're learning to play ping pong, is it easy? No. We're learning how to type, is it easy? No. And so the learner often will blame the keyboard or the ping pong paddle, or Oliver blame somebody instead of looking at yourself. So de-escalation, as in dealing with difficult people, as in being a human being, is hard. Hard. We have to all accept that. And then how we're going to deal with that difficulty, with that hardness in our life is critical. Okay? All right. So just some quick examples of de-escalation strategies. You have to listen. You have to shut your mouth at first and just listen. Do not open your mouth. Okay? And you want to hear where the person is coming from. Whether it's valid or invalid, it doesn't really matter. They have to be able to express their feelings first. And then you're not going to try to correct them. You're just trying to acknowledge their hurtness, their hurt feelings. You're never trying to agree with them either, right? So those of you who work with clients, you never agree with them. But you can acknowledge their hurtness. Oh, I'm sorry, disappointed. I'm sorry it didn't work. But, oh, it's so-and-so. No, you never agree with them. It's so-and-so's fault. All right, so you don't ever agree. But you have to be able to de-escalate, connect, wait for them to go through their concerns. You've got to be able to show that you really are listening to them. And that's a hard thing, especially like at AES. You got to sit there for a long time. A long time. But it's the only way it's going to work. There's no shortcuts in life, no shortcuts for this. So you have to give it time. So you have to say, I turn my brain off. Oh, here I go. I'm going to be sitting here like this with my hands folded. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Sorry to hear that. Oh, that's too bad. And then eventually you're going to try to move them beyond whatever's frustrating them, right? Not addressing the problem, but diversion, creating something different, such as, hey, you know what, can we set up an appointment to talk about that? I really want to delve into this further, see what we can do. That might help. After they trust you, you've heard them, they might be able to move. You say, we've been talking about this last time. Let's save this for our next meeting. I want to talk about this again. This is really good. So let's bring it back up. You can use some other diversionary tactic, such as, do you mind? Let's go for a walk right now. Or, hey, let's go get something to eat right now. Just to get them out of the mindset. It's not an easy practice. Again, very difficult, hard to do, especially taking your emotions out of it, which we'll talk about later as we talk about how to deal with difficult people. I've just got two great examples. Recently, I was on a plane going to Denver, about ready to take off. The airline attendant, what are they called? Flight attendants. The flight attendant is giving her instructions in the middle of the aisle. There's a guy a couple rows up above, in front of us, and she turns to him, you have to put your phone down. And I'm not talking on the phone. And then she says, who are you talking to? I'm not talking to anybody. And all of a sudden, pretty soon, within a minute, she did the bad job of escalation. She fired this guy up and he was screaming in the plane. I'm not talking to anybody. Who are you talking about? What do you mean? It's not me. Who are you asking me? And so playing the victim, all this stuff. So she gets in a huff and she says, we're stopping the plane right now. So she marches away, turn the plane around, go back to the thing. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to go to see my grandkids. What's going on here? Yeah. So I said, oh my gosh, they're never going to get this guy off because he kept talking on his phone. I have no idea if he was talking to anybody real or not. It sounded like people were talking back to him. He eventually was calling the Long Beach police on his phone and everything else. So eventually, though, a airport person comes in. It's not a police, I don't know, maybe there was a police officer, I really don't know. Come up to the guy and just quietly talks to him, says, hi, how you doing? And he's mouthing off, screaming, just like your clients, right? You could be nice, but they'll be screaming at you. So she just keeps talking to him, and then then eventually after he says, you know what, we're gonna have to leave the plane. Oh, I'm sorry, but we're still gonna have to leave the plane. And then eventually it goes back and forth, and then she gives him some next steps, like, if we don't leave the plane, we might have to get the police. We don't want to do that. I think you agree. So I don't know how she did it, but she got the guy off the plane. I don't know. I thought for sure it's going to be cops, handcuffs on the floor, guy screaming. He just got up and left. Now, it could have been outside the window. There was 4 police cars sitting outside the window too. So that might have helped. But guy got up and left. And it only took her about 3 minutes. Close the door, and she diverted him. I don't know, I was trying to think, did she lie or not? I think she said the following: we'll try to see if we can get you on the next plane, which I knew there was no way that was going to happen. I don't think, I hope not. So that's a good diversion tactic as well, right? So, okay, so maybe I can try to help you about getting your bed situation fixed. That's not lying, it's just talking. It's not really solving it, but it's a way to bring it down and then come back another day and fight another battle. And then the other example was, I was at Costco recently, and the cashier, I could tell he was distracted and wasn't really paying attention, which is unusual because Costco employees are really good typically. And so I checked my thing, and I saw he double charged me for something. So he said, oh, just go see that service agent. So I went and saw a service agent. Poor guy, and I understand what happened now. But he started looking, and he couldn't figure it out. He's counting the number of, 13, and you only got 11 in your basket, or the ticket says 11, and you got 13. Couldn't figure it out at all. Back and forth. And I just want to get out of here. Just give me back my $5.99 for my tomatoes. I could care less. Be done. Kept going on. He couldn't figure it out. The reason why we couldn't figure it out, just so you know, is that the stupid receipt had the bulk of the items all together, and then there was like a 2-inch space with 2 others at the top. And he was in a hurry, I was in a hurry, and just didn't really look at the stupid receipt. Well, so this keeps going on. I'm just sort of sitting there, getting annoyed, not getting mad. But eventually what happens, Costco is so good, another attendant comes and relieves him, right? So when we get in our conflicts, we're always supposed to have, this person just walked up, took over, and the guy just disappeared. Just disappeared. It was amazing. And then pretty soon I had a supervisor, I believe, just came over there and stood and just watched. Didn't say a word, just looked at the whole thing. Are you going to say something? Are you just going to watch us? Can't you help me? Just watch the whole thing. So there was one of the items, we couldn't match the items. And he said, oh, you weren't charged for this wine. And I said, oh, whatever. I don't know. This is the first guy. And then, so by the time the second woman comes, she saw the tomatoes and took that off. But I was so flustered, well, just take the wine. If I didn't pay for it, just take it. Took the receipt home, and I looked at the receipt. I had paid for it because so it was there. And she didn't catch it at that time. So anyway, I walked back the next day and just told them the story. Just told them to them, and they gave me my bottle of wine. All right, let's start with this. When I say difficult people, who pops in your head immediately? Don't. You didn't have to share, but we appreciate. Shannon's a good sharer. That's one thing we can always count on with Shannon. She's a good sharer. All right, so you got someone in your head. My guess is the person it's in a relationship with you, right? It's an ongoing relationship. It's not a one-off, person you met in the grocery store. It's, oh yeah, that person, all right? Everybody's got somebody in your head? Keep it there. Don't let them go away. Keep it there. When you think about it, probably, if you thought about it, your body had a physiological reaction. Your blood pressure probably rose. Your blood pressure probably rose. You felt agitated. You felt not calm. Right. Yeah, get anxiety. That's what anxiety. So that's what happens in our difficult situations. Our body is responding as well. So being able to control our bodies is important as well. Let me introduce you to some former employees of mine, Jim and Jan. Jan, 5th grade teacher. This is when I was in the school system. I was a principal. So she was one of my teachers. 5th grade teacher, fantastic teacher. One of the best teachers I ever worked with. Did great with kids, did great with parents, did great with different types of kids, not just so she was fantastic. Jim, almost pretty good. Really good teacher. Had a, great pedigree for, I was in independent schools, so she schools, and pay a lot of money to go. And he had the right pedigree, Georgetown Law. He's a former lawyer, teaching second grade. And he did some fantastic stuff with kids, really creative stuff, so really good. So great employees, however, they became difficult for me. Now, how could they become difficult for me? We'll find out. All right, our faith tells us, what does it tell us, Allison? We're supposed to love one another. We're supposed to turn, oh, that's right, we have that too. We have both, you're right. So we turn our cheek, we love our others, but as we've already agreed, it is difficult. And why is it so difficult? All right. Our personal backgrounds, right? How we were raised, our environmental standards, our economic standards, our families, our siblings, all that stuff impacts who we are, good and bad, right? And we're all humans, so those humans were humans as well, so they had all their issues as well. Traumas, you could have deep traumas, real traumas in your childhood and your past and your background that are going to impact you, right? How you interact in the world, how you be in the world. And then what we've learned in the last 20 years is how our brain works. We think we're rational people, but our brain doesn't necessarily work that way. We think it does, but it really doesn't. So scientists have been able to prove and show and demonstrate how our brain works. They can do electronic testing of your brain, and they can do things, and all of a sudden certain parts of your brain light up. And they go, oh yeah, that's what it's affecting. Okay, so their research on this is really good. And they've come up with a whole new cognitive science about how our brains work. So there's some cool things, Shannon and I went to implicit bias. I think praised it in implicit bias. Just the way society is, we're raised with certain norms, so we don't even know, okay? And all of these things become conscious. Hopefully we don't have we're aware of our conscious ones, but a lot of it's just unconscious. We don't even know. How do you control what you don't know? How do you control it? Well, we'll talk a little bit about how you can do it. So the amygdala, that's a critical one. So if you don't know what the amygdala is, it's a little part of your brain right up here, okay? It's your fear and flight part of your body that's been around since we've been around, since humans have been around. And what happens is so much of our difficult people trigger that. So we're operating, the amygdala is never rational. It's never rational. It's emotional. So as soon as you go there, you're losing. You're going to lose. So how can we figure this out? How can we understand that? All right. So just a quick thing about some of these cognitive, it's kind of fun to ever read if you ever want to learn about this stuff, because they use, all our sales are based on this, all gambling is based on this, all insurance is based on this. It's all used, they've been using it, but now they know why they use it. So, like the anchoring biases or framing biases, they've shown that, like when you're shopping for a product and you think the first time you go, you think you're getting a good deal, everything from beyond that is anchored in that original thought. Whether that original thought was true or accurate, like I'm getting a good deal. So they've done studies like that you go and you get your car and it's, it says it's $35,000 and you say, oh, that's a great deal. And then you go to the next place and it says it's $33,000. People reject the $33,000 because they think there's something wrong. They think it must be a bad car, there's something wrong with it because I got a good deal at $35,000. It anchors you there. It does that. Confirmation bias, we keep hearing that all the time, how our digital media, right, your feeds, all send you stuff that you already know and believe. It doesn't change you. So there's a lot of that stuff going on now, confirmation bias. And as a manager, you probably, or as a person, you probably use this a lot too, is if Miguel does something wrong, which he never does, Naveen, I know that. And he's done something wrong in the past, you go, oh, there goes Miguel again. That's a confirmation bias. Even though Miguel may not have done that for 6 months, it doesn't matter. My brain goes, oh, it's Miguel again, right? Does that make sense? The confirmation bias. The one that self-serving, that's a great one. We never evaluate ourselves well. We never evaluate ourselves well. We always think ourselves better than we are. So, a good example is, so a guy runs a red light. You get mad, right? And you may even do something coming out of your mouth or something like that, right? You run the red light. Do you get mad at yourself? No, you say, oh, I got to hurry. I got to do something. It's important. That other guy just ran. He's probably saying the same thing. So we're not good evaluators either. That's just the way our brains work. It's just natural. So all this stuff is natural. Can't get mad at it. It's just natural. The one that I like most is availability because this confronts me all the time in my relationship with my wife. That one is the one where the most recent, in her case, it's like disaster, defines all disasters and all events. So if there's like an earthquake, it'll be like, oh man, earthquakes are happening all the time now. They are? I don't know. I haven't seen that in the data. But it's what you anchor. So that's why, like for like crime, people are saying, oh, crime's up. The reality, crime is down. The statistics show all crime is down. Across the board, in most places, most regions, da-da-da-da-da. But the public, all they think is what? Oh, I heard about crime in my neighborhood, therefore my neighborhood is full of crime. It is, one case. And that's called the availability because you anchor to that one thing and you make it general and say, oh, here it is. Okay, that's our brain. It goes to the amygdala, we got these biases, our brain, it doesn't work very well. So how are we going to deal with difficult people? Because it triggers all this stuff. All right, how are we doing on time? Okay, good. So the first thing as a human, as we all know, you got to know yourself, right? If you don't know yourself, don't know what triggers you, what makes you happy, what makes you upset, how people get angry with you, you're never gonna solve this. You can even use therapy to uncover. So some people use therapy to help uncover what triggers you, what makes you tick. You got to be aware of the cognitive biases we just talked about. You got to understand the people, their strength, understand their strengths. So Working Genius has really helped us to do that, right? So identify with their strengths, not their negatives. Again, that's a human tendency to go to negatives because that fires up here. Oh, the world's falling apart. Oh, we don't go to politics. Why do newspapers sell? Newspapers sell. TV sells because they do negative. That's the only reason. It's not. It sells because our brains, they love it. They don't love happy puppy stories. All right. Working through Genius, you've got to be able to demonstrate care, and not passing judgment, guilt whenever you interact with somebody. You can't do that. And every time you get in angry with somebody or having a difficult relationship and you pass judgment or guilt, you just step back 6 steps, and it's going to take you 20 steps to fix the 6. That's the way it works. Whenever you take, in the marketing world and in the social world, I used to tell my teachers, you do one negative thing, it takes you 7 things, and this is the marketing too, they know this, it takes 7 positives to correct the negative. Not just one. You may think, I'll fix it. 7 things to correct that one negative. So as soon as you do that guilt, as soon as you do judgment, big hole, dig it. Take you forever to get back out. So Andre gave us some good ideas last time, right? About perspective. Same thing in dealing with difficult people, is having perspective. So he talked about getting sleep, nutrition, exercise, doing self-care. Praises talked to us last time about active listening, building rapport, clear expectations with the person. All of those things will help with a difficult person. But the thing to remember most is it all takes time. We all want quick fixes. We're lazy. We're humans. That's us. There's nothing we can do about it. So the more we can get into our mind that this is a journey. The pastors are good about this. This is a journey. This is time. This is not overnight. And we can live in the uncertainty during that passage, the better off we're going to be. Okay. So, let's go back to Jim and Jan. So, the reason why Jan was difficult for me was not because she was a great teacher. Why would I have any problems with her? She was needy, according to me, right? That's my word. And that's my brain when I was a 40-year-old. She was needy. She wanted to talk. She wanted to discuss. She wanted to, and yeah, you know this, Shannon, don't you? And I didn't think I had time. This is me, right? This is me thinking, is rationalizing my behavior. I don't have time. You're doing fine. Why do we need to talk? You're doing great. Why do I got this guy over here I got to talk to? Why do I need to talk to you? So it was difficult for me because here was a star teacher and here I'm having a difficult time with her. And it was my problem. Now, I didn't really figure this out super well because I was just a 40-year-old, didn't really learning how to do things. Still don't even know how to do it, so it doesn't even matter. But, so that was Jan. Jim, he was, again, I said he did some incredible things with those kids. It was super great teacher. However, he had 2 faults that made him very difficult. One is for whatever reason, he would, I use the word destroy, 1 or 2 kids in his class per year because he didn't get along with them. For whatever reason, I couldn't figure that out. I didn't know, why do you pick, he's so good with every other kid, and 1 or 2 every year. I'd have one parent who hated him every year. And then 99% loved him. Weird. Could never really figure it out. But this other thing that he made it difficult is that he was a whiner. My back hurts, I can't make the meeting, I can't do this. There was always some sort of excuse, and all the teachers didn't like him. I didn't like him as a person either. And they were always complaining about him and things like that. He just did things differently, right? Just a little different. So he's a difficult person. Again, did I resolve this? Not very well. I tried to do my coaching, didn't get anywhere with it. It eventually led to where I had to meet with him and the board chair to try to manage it because she loved him. She thought he was great, how can you have, and that still didn't resolve, and I'll tell you the conclusion later. All right. So managing difficult people is a difficult thing. Self-awareness. Self-awareness, self-awareness. And as Brian knows, self-awareness comes from reflection. Consistent, intentional reflection. Do we do that? Not me. Should we? Yes. So consistent, intentional reflection. So if you have prayer life already, right? How do you use that reflectively to understand yourself? Because again, I'm telling you, most of the difficult people is about understanding yourself. It's not about understanding the other person, it's about understanding yourself. Okay, so what do you do to develop some habits? So do you do daily check-ins with yourself? Do you stop at lunch every day to do a self-reflection, how the day is going? How did I deal with the people this morning in my workspace? Did I not do well? Oh, why was I short with da-da-da? I should have listened. I should open my mouth. So those daily things makes habits. And that's how we change, and that's how we begin to control or take understanding over our cognitive biases and our amygdala. Because when our amygdala starts to fire, as soon as, some of us get that email that seems a little, short and complaining and to you, right? Some of us immediately, our amygdala goes in here when our fingers are typing as fast as they can, a response. Never good, right? Because you're in a state of where you're not going to be able to respond well. So what do? You should pause, come back to it an hour later, let it sink through. Your mind may have thought of some different ideas and thoughts. I'm sure you've all done this. If you go away from a problem and let it sit up here, something happens up here without you even doing anything. Right? I don't know, it works. If you just let the time to simmer up here, you might come up with a better solution, especially if you're being that reflective person saying, hey, what should I really do that would be a good solution rather than an angry solution in dealing with that difficult person. All right, so I've got some handouts that I'll share with you in a minute. So Jim and Jan. So Jan continued to have a good career. I put up, I didn't do well. So again, I didn't do it well. I wish I had, but I maintained friendship with her. And when she retired, we would visit and all that kind of stuff. So I was able to maintain that relationship. Jim, I did not. So I had to fire Jim. And so typically in the school world, at least the way that I ran my schools, we always gave them 6 months, 5 months notice so they could go get a new job. That was the whole point. And in the school world, the contracts start in the summer and all that, so you would want to do that. Him, I didn't want to do that because I had a fear that it would blow up and create problems, so I didn't do that. I fired him on the last day of school. My bad, maybe, I don't know. It did create some waves. My wife was mad as heck at me because she said, my former wife, so she was mad at heck at me because she said, that guy was the greatest teacher in the world, da-da-da, what do you do? So. All my teachers were dancing with joy, coming in, oh, thank God, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the reason I really did it was because how he was hurting kids. I could deal with the other, sort of, but I didn't like how he was hurting kids every year. This is what I didn't like the most. And so that was really why I made my decision. Now, so he fired. I didn't really maintain relationships with him much. However, I got a very nice letter from Jim when I was getting fired at the school. And he wrote a letter to the board saying how great I was. I read it recently. So, oh my God, what is he doing? So he said how great it was. So anyway, had that. But then the real sad part about the whole story is he continued on, got divorced, and then eventually took his own life. Yep, guy took his own life about 7 years after I let him go. 10 years, I don't even know. Wasn't paying attention to that. So, life has consequences, real things.
That's a horrible way to end.
I'm going to go to some other things. So, it's just reality. That's all I'm trying to do. It's just, and it is my experience, and it was a difficult person, and this is where the relationship went. All right. So I've got another good example. So one of my staff members, I've got an open relationship with him, so it's okay, David. David can't remember anything. Cannot remember anything. So that's frustrating, right? You tell him what to do and he doesn't remember, right, James? You don't smile. All right, so he can't remember. So like recently we had like the gas was off and I told him to go figure, he couldn't remember. He had to go follow up with him. So I always have to follow up. Did you remember to? Did you do? Have to do that almost regularly. Not all the time, but a lot of times. So what can I do as a manager? So is that a difficult person? Yes, no, maybe. And so what you have to do then as the manager is you evaluate the holistic person in your life. And is this person making enough contribution to the team despite all that? So that's what you would do as a manager and say, okay, what are the trade-offs? And then to deal with it as the manager, is it helpful for me to get mad every time I have to remind him? David forgot again, I got to remind him. Does that help me in any way? No. Zero. And it doesn't help anything. It's not changing him. All it's doing is making me a worse manager. That's all it's doing. So we have to then, again, as I said, when dealing with difficult people, look back at ourselves. And what could I do? I have to say, I accept because I accept him as a team member. This is his contributions. He has those. That's not his working genius, right, Praise? So that's not his working genius. So I just have to accept that, and that's my job. Even though I don't like it, I have to do it, right? And I shouldn't get upset about it, nothing. Just, okay, write the note, follow up. And then, 50% of the time, oh, good, you did, I didn't have to remind you, and then I'll be happy. And then, the other, don't say, oh, I knew it, just say, oh, did you remember to da-da-da. All right? Some thoughts. All right. Then I have a couple handouts, and then we'll go. When I was a younger person, I read this great book called Nonviolent Communication. Marshall Rosenberg is the author. And he was working with incarcerated or closely incarcerated youth, which is something I'd done in my background as well. So I was reading about that. And he developed this program or thinking called nonviolent communication, which is what I've handed out to you. And the essence of it is we all have control of our feelings in our lives. And the way that we present to others is all about us. It's not about the other person. It's all about us. And we always have to remember how we can be in control of who we are, what our desires are, what we want in talking with others and in living our lives. It's a sort of it's an Eastern philosophy thing. So here's a great example of this thinking. In your apartment you live in, and you've got a noisy neighbor, right? Keeping you up, making noise, got a little child? No. You got that issue. You deal with it. You try to be kind. Hey, can you work on it? Nothing changes. What options do you have? Shannon, say it again.
You can move.
You are in control. You can move. You could. They might ratchet it up, so nuclear war, who knows what it would go to. But we ultimately have control. Now, would it be a bummer? Yeah, because maybe you loved your apartment. But you are in control, always. You are in control. And so that's critical. Final piece on the back. When I was in college, I was trying to better myself so I could do all this stuff. Ben Franklin had a great reflective daily habit practice. He would measure himself on those categories daily. And so I did that for about 2 months when I was in college and recorded and all that. Did it help? No. But if you make a daily habit, that's what I'm trying to say. How can we become these people who can deal with difficult people differently? So it's a great little tool, and he used it for most of his life. Now, did he? I don't know how well he lived, but it seemed like he had a good life. So, all right. Any quick questions? I know I've run out of time. Praise, anything else? Okay. Guys, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Hopefully I had this on record the whole time.